Here we go. And a recording of this presentation and the PowerPoint slides will be available on our website within the next week or so. So to start out with, I'd like to introduce, first of all, Marjorie McAllister is our new-ish Assistant Director of the New York State Home Program, who joined us in February. And Marjorie comes to HCR from the Buffalo Erie Niagara Land Improvement Corporation and has a history of community development and affordable housing experience, ranging from the construction of single-family homes to a 30-unit senior housing mixed-use development. Marge is stationed in our Buffalo office, and we are thrilled to have her as part of our team. So I can't see all of you guys while I'm looking at the PowerPoint. I don't know if Marge waved to you guys, but you can wave and say hi, Marge. And also with us today, we have some of the rest of our amazing home team, all working out of our Albany office. We have a couple of folks on vacation. Alex Smith, who is our manager of finance and compliance, he does all of the IDIS work. He's not in the office today, and Courtney Burke is one of the program managers. She's also out. But we do have Sarah Bramer. Sarah, say hi. Many of you know her. For those of you who don't know, Sarah is the senior program manager with our team. And then we also have Leland Barup. Leland, give a wave. And he wears many hats. So he helps with IDIS, and he also program manages some of our development projects, as well as our single family projects that we're going to talk about today. All of us, we are all part of the Office of Community Renewal, headed by Deputy Commissioner and President of OCR, Crystal Loeffler. So the plan for today is to get through the materials we have to inform you about the funding round and application process first, and then if time allows, we will field some questions. So New York State is a HUD designated participating jurisdiction, or what we call a home PJ, and receives an allocation of approximately $27 million annually in federal home investment partnership program funds from HUD. Funds can be used to acquire, rehabilitate, or construct affordable housing, or to provide assistance to low-income home buyers or renters through partnerships with counties, towns, cities, villages, private developers, and community-based nonprofit organizations. So today we're here just to talk specifically about our open competitive funding round for single-family programs, which are geared for nonprofit and municipal subrecipients. So this doesn't include multifamily or home buyer resale development projects. We do entertain other home eligible activities if you have proposals for them. However, they cannot proceed through this particular competitive funding round process and have to be brought to us directly for consideration. And there's more information on how to do that on our website. So currently we have $10 million allotted for single family programs. More funds might be awarded depending on funding availability and the quality of applications, but also the opposite is true. We reserve the right to fund less if applications are not good. You may submit multiple applications, however, awards are limited to 2 per organization, assuming that organization demonstrates capacity. No 2 activities can be combined into 1 application or contract. And for those that haven't applied recently, like within the past 3 to 4 years, there have been pretty big changes with scoring and program management. So I highly suggest that you listen to this, obviously the full webinar, and then look through our materials. And also, for those that do apply each round and regularly receive funding, don't assume to know how to apply. or what's in the RFA for details. RFA meaning request for applications. So please be sure to, even if you think you know everything, to read everything over again, because we do kind of tweak things every year. Specifically look at the admin plan and the application instructions, and that will give you much more detail than we can possibly get into this time in the webinar. So the application deadline is Friday, September 7th at 4 p.m. So please do not call at or 4 p.m. In fairness to everyone that's applying, the cutoff time is 4 o'clock, my clock. And, don't wait until the last minute. We urge all of you folks to apply and try sooner rather than later. We always get these last minute calls that someone's having trouble submitting something, and we handle all of the IT calls as well as the programmatic calls ourselves. And we have a very small team. So, we're limited in the help we can offer. And if it's one thing I really hate to do is, shut the application system down at 4 o'clock, seeing that folks have spent so much time trying only to wait until the last minute and have trouble submitting it and not be able to get the application in. The target dates on this slide are noted, but the timing of awards really depends on the number of applications received and the time needed to score the applications. So we're really looking to begin work in spring of 2024. And if the contracts are executed in December, there'll be plenty of time for the Tier 1 environmental reviews and work to begin for the spring construction season. And awards are, of course, subject to the final HTFC board approval. So eligible applicants are units of local government, so cities, towns, counties, villages, nonprofit corporations, public housing authorities that have 1 year of recent relevant residential housing services of experience. They must demonstrate the local market need and capacity, which is part of the application, and all areas of New York State are eligible. So not-for-profits must be incorporated under New York State nonprofit corporation law and complete a vendor responsibility questionnaire, or a VRQ. That's something fairly new, but it's been within the last 2 or 3 applications. That doesn't apply to units of local government for the VRQ. And again, this is all outlined in the application instructions. Programs located within another home participating jurisdiction should provide evidence of funding commitments from that alternative local home PJ if they cover the same activities, which leverage the funds for the program and reduce the funds needed for the New York State Home Fund program. So recent relevant residential housing services experience to the community for at least 1 year prior to application is more for nonprofit organizations, whereas municipalities mostly have this by nature of their existence. We really just don't want to see, like, for example, a healthcare non-for-profit come in and apply for housing funds and have no idea how to use them or what the reason for them is. And again, you have to demonstrate local market need for the activity or the program to be performed in the proposed service area and the capacity to use that amount of funding requested within that contract term. So we have the eligible activities for this funding round are housing rehabilitation, manufactured housing replacement, homebuyer down payment assistance, and tenant-based rental assistance. So again, read the admin plans and all the funding docs so you know what you're contractually bound to do if you're awarded. I can't tell you how many organizations are awarded, then act surprised or frustrated when faced with program regulations and requirements that they weren't aware of. So don't assume you know everything because you've applied regularly. There are revisions every year. One thing I want to address up front is rental units, and not related to TBRA or tenant-based rental assistance, but uh, single-family homes. In home, in the home program, it means addressing 1 to 4 units. So for the purposes of street use, single family is a house owned and lived in by one family. So you'll see that we generally don't allow assistance for rental units. And the reason being here is that home rental regulations are tricky, and they impose a much higher and complex requirements on both the homeowner and the applicant. So for example, there are lease requirements, the Violence Against Women Act requirements, and certain lease clauses are not allowed. There's home rent restrictions, tenant income verification and documentation, all need to be reviewed and approved by the awarded applicant, which is the local program administrator. And we've not seen a lot of success with homeowner rental regulation compliance for single family homes, which is a lot to ask for a 5 to 15 year period of affordability, depending on the amount of home funds that are awarded. So rental rehab will only be awarded to those applicants that can clearly understand rental requirements, which are detailed in the admin plans, and any units assisted with home funds must comply with that. In certain situations, it is possible to cost allocate home funds just to specific units, but our program prefers the whole house approach where everything is rehabbed. So first we have, sorry, I gotta take a sip of coffee here. Housing rehabilitation, which is our most used activity. So we want to see health and safety issues addressed first, and we follow the order of priority that's listed in the admin plans. We also want to see folks partner with weatherization where it makes sense and where it's possible, so that weatherization items are addressed while the house is kind of opened up and being rehabbed. So you're not doing two separate, um, you know, sets of work and ripping the house open, then fixing, finishing that, and then having them do rehab, or weatherization separately. Um, we're looking for applicants who are not afraid of lead-based paint compliance and abatement. Um, we want to use the funds to provide a fully rehabbed home. So while this isn't a program that provides upgrades or luxuries, code compliant units meet the bare minimum and often come back for funding. So we're looking, to address as many issues as possible. I know we see applications come in and folks kind of, the trigger for lead-based paint abatement is $25,000 or more put into a unit. So we see folks come in for $24,999 per unit. Um, we're looking to not have homeowners come back for more rehab. So we want to address as many issues as possible, and sometimes that means triggering lead-based paint compliance issues. And applications aren't scored on the number of units or cost per unit, but the ability to complete the program. So just because you're doing less units for more money, that's not going to impact your application negatively. Also, we hear folks talk about having issues finding contractors, and we've talked about it, and it would be easier to do less jobs with fewer contractor bids and entice them with larger projects with more money. So that might be an answer to some of the contractor issues folks see. Next activity is manufactured housing replacement, and just wanted to note here that we've increased our project limit up to $140,000 per project, which we've seen covers the full cost in a majority of the cases. There are always those outliers, and a waiver to go over the limit could be requested given solid substantiation. and this goes for all activities, but we mostly see this in manufactured housing replacement. And the max after rehab value limits still apply here. So you just can't go over the home after rehab value limit. There are permanent foundation requirements that must be followed for this activity. And if you're proposing to work in co-ops or parks, take a look at the period of affordability and security and lien instrument requirements, which are on our home website, to be sure you can comply with them because they are a little bit complex, but totally doable. Any work in parks or co-ops must be clearly identified upfront in the application so that the proper environmental review will be done. So if your proposal intends to replace more than one unit in a park, all sites would need to undergo a NEPA review as a non-tiered review. And this includes publishing a public notice, public comment period, a HUD decision period, just like the tier one reviews. So you want to do that all up front and not decide in the middle of your program to do that. And then you have to go back and redo some environmental review work. New units that are sited on vacant lots is not really part of this activity. The new unit has to replace a deteriorated unit. And one big note here is don't confuse this with the state MMHR program. So the state also has a manufacturer and mobile home replacement program. This is the home MMHR. A lot of groups marry these two funding resources because the state MMHR program is capped at $100,000 per unit. That's a statutory limit that we can't change. And it's generally in today's environment not enough to do a replacement. So folks kind of apply for both in order to make it work. So next is homebuyer down payment assistance, which covers obviously down payment assistance with or without rehab. So you can do it straight, just down payment assistance, or you can kind of write rehab into the program. So you really want to do some research and consider if the homes in the target area that you're proposing to hit will meet code without rehab at the time of purchase. Consider if other sources of rehab and repairs is available or if it should be requested as part of this home application. So $5,000 or less is considered repairs, not rehab, and it's basically meant for use for correcting deficiencies needed to bring the unit up to home property standards and or New York State code. And as long as there are no health or safety issues, the owner could occupy the unit, although the preference is for the repairs to be completed first. Doesn't always work that easily on the streets, but that's how we intend for it to work. More than $5,000 is considered kind of a bigger rehab activity, which is considered replacement or upgrade of kind of structural systems, meeting larger health and safety violations or code violations. And with these types of repairs, buyers really shouldn't occupy the home until the major rehab is completed, and those trigger the rehab requirements. I should say the home rehab requirements. Also check out the home purchase price value limits for your county. So this is a home regulatory requirement and can't be waived. And the home after rehab value is used for units receiving rehab. So make sure those are not going to limit you in what housing stock is available to be purchased. On a side note, if you are awarded funds, all environmental reviews will include rehab, whether it's in the application or not, to account for a potential addition of rehab if it's needed down the road. So it gives you more flexibility, although we really expect all of this work to be done up front and, applied for properly up front. Also, all activities except TBRA will likely see the addition of radon on the Tier 2 checklist as a toxic substance that needs to be addressed. So that's a fairly new item that is being listed as a contaminant that has to be dealt with in the environmental review. And last but not least, we have tenant-based rental assistance, or TBRA as we call it. This is and I find this, I'm still trying to figure out why, but this is our least subscribed activity, but it is really relatively easy to administer and would seem like the most relevant given our current economy and the rental statistics that we're seeing. So, all rental is eligible, not just traditional apartment units, but manufactured homes as well. And as long as you're not recognized as a homeowner under New York state law, you could generally be eligible for TBRA. So what we've been highlighting is the fact that utility deposits can be provided only with security deposit or rental assistance. Can't be a standalone. So a utility is considered gas, water, electric, doesn't cover telephone, cable, or internet. So utility deposits are standalone. However, we are encouraging applicants to partner, especially with legal service organizations who've expressed the need for security deposit assistance. So applications for one-time support to cover tenant security deposits and maybe first month's rent are an option. We're particularly hoping to see applicants who could administer regional TBRA programs to promote like a greater geographic coverage. And again, partnerships with legal services, Section 8, and other related organizations exhibiting a referral arrangement should be demonstrated. We have met with legal service organizations throughout the state who have been super positive about the possibility of having a security deposit assistance program. Oddly, many of the not-for-profits that we've met with have not felt the same need for that. So we encourage the not-for-profits to reach out to your legal service organizations to see if there's a need for it, and then apply for a program, and you'd have a steady pipeline of applicants through legal services that are assisting tenants with tenant issues. So the contract term is 30 months or 2.5 years. So apply for what you can reasonably accomplish during that contract period. And we've increased it to 2.5 years to basically encompass an automatic extension. So extensions will be limited or not approved. So if you cannot finish your contract within that 2.5 year term, we prefer a 2-year term. But if you 2.5 years at max, the funds will be deobligated and put back out for awards in the future. And past performance and capacity will be taken into consideration if you apply in future funding rounds. So that's another thing that we look at. We want to see folks that have, been able to finish their contract within the stated period. So the budget and financing plan is uploaded as a CDOL attachment, and I'll explain what CDOL is in a moment for those of you that don't know, but it's our community development online system, and that's how you apply for funds. The budget is kind of a big part of the application, and information about the budget is in our admin plan. And the budget worksheets support the creation of the application budget. And you should prepare the budget first and then fill out CDOL. Because CDOL and the budget worksheets really have to be consistent. And the budget categories include project costs, which are hard costs of, delivering the project soft costs, project delivery, which is at 13% of the total award, and admin costs, which is 5%. So other program requirements, this seems like a lot, but not all of them will apply to each activity. In fact, there's 5 of them right off the bat that I see wouldn't apply to TBRA, for example. But I'm not going to go over them in depth, but you do need to be aware of them and the compliance requirements which are covered in the RFA and the admin plans. So for example, Davis-Bacon related acts, section 3, and URA, Uniform Relocation Assistance, are not so much triggered by the scale of these programs under this application, but they are federal and we do need to list them to cover our bases. So application materials have been and are currently available on the home program website, and the website is listed there. And we have the RFA, which is the request for applications, the home program application instructions, the budget worksheet that I just mentioned, the admin plans, which detail the program in its entirety. If you want to know what you're signing up for, read through the admin plans. We have the home program schedule that we expect local program administrators or awardees to follow. And then we also have a grant verification form. I think that's all I wanted to cover there. So the rating criteria. The application and the scoring were revised last round and they were tweaked a little bit this year, but remain generally the same. So prior to the overall scoring, it will applications undergo a threshold review. Scoring is based on 100 points and the details are in the RFA, but I will run through them quickly. So proposal and program design get 50 points. Organizational capacity is 40 points. So we look there at staff roles, knowledge, experience with the home program or similar programs. We look at past success with a home program if you've been awarded previously. The budget and financing plan is 10 points. So we want to see folks have an understanding of realistic home cost and the requirements and procedures. And then there is a score reduction. So applicants with open contracts that indicate a risk of not completing on time, or if they've received prior monitoring findings or concerns, or are in poor standing with other OCR programs, could possibly have points reduced. So, as I promised, CDOL is Community Development Online, and it's HCR's application system. And this is the part of the presentation where everyone starts to fade out, so stay with me here. It's vital to the application. Again, like I said earlier, we do not have IT to assist us. It's not like we have a state tech number you can call for problems. We're the ones that field all the questions, the program staff. So please read the instructions. That's the biggest issue we've seen is folks don't read the instructions, and items could be easily resolved just by reading the instructions. If we're backlogged and don't get to you quickly, if you have a question, check to make sure that you're you're reading it properly. CDOL works best through Internet Explorer. As a preliminary step, be sure you know who your security manager and electronic signatory are. So if your organization has not previously applied for funding, you must submit an application registration form. If you've used CDOL system, but you need to update your security manager, you have to submit a security manager registration form. And you have to know your user ID and password. That's something that we generally can't help you with. If you don't have your user ID and password, you'll have to click on forgot password and redo your password. We have no access to that. Applications submitted have to be electronically certified by an authorized representative of the applicant organization, and the person who will certify the application must be set up in CDOL as a user. So again, don't wait till the last minute. This is all in the instructions. In the very first part, it walks you through exactly what you need to do to set yourself up in the CDOL system in order to apply, especially if you're new. So the CDL application process is 5 basic steps. So it's completing 4 required exhibits in CDOL, which has all of the questions and the scoring items, validating those exhibits, certifying and submitting the application exhibits, uploading and submitting the attachments that are needed. So there's up to 4. Some are required, some are optional, and then certifying those attachments. So the exhibits, like I said, there's 4 of them. There's the application summary, the proposal and program design, organizational capacity, and budget and financing. So those are the 4 areas that are scored. The questions that you answer will determine your score. So you validate, certify, and submit. The attachments, like I said, are 4 possible ones. The budget worksheet is required. The grant verification form is optional. The vendor responsibility questionnaire, or VRQ, is for nonprofits, so that is required for nonprofits. And the applicant certification details a whole bunch of certifications that you make prior to submitting. So you want to give thought to the budget and potential program expenses. So while it is changeable, we want to see that applicants understand what costs are involved in the program and that they are all covered. And all sources of funding must be identified, so that means anything that is paid for outside of the home funds must also be acknowledged. The grant verification form is to show capacity if you haven't received a previous home award. If you don't upload this, then you'll get 0 points. And that's, again, if you only for those who haven't received a previous home award. The VRQ is fairly new, and like I said, it's required for not-for-profits, but it is not required for municipalities. Please do not upload, mail, or email anything that we don't request. If we don't ask for it, we don't need it, and it won't help your application. If anything, it'll make it more complicated and confusing and may hurt your application. The application status is shown in the applicant's main menu in CDOL. So it's either in progress, certified, completed, or terminated. So you want to see it ultimately completed. So when you're verifying if it's been successfully submitted and all the required steps are done, it will say completed. If it's in progress or certified, it's not submitted yet, you're not done. So just wanted to go over a few items in preparation for applying for a home grant. We see many applicants that apply without doing any of the background research, and they're not successful even if they do end up being awarded. So applications should be based on the facts that you have. You have to identify a need. Don't apply and then try to create a need. Be sure there's a demand. Conduct some outreach to determine if there's a sufficient pool of eligible and interested applicants to participate in the program that you want to propose. Consider organizational capacity. Just because there might be a huge need and demand doesn't mean that your staff can fully meet that demand. Do you have partners that can assist you? Do you need a consultant to help you? Be careful not to over apply. Applicants should only request the amount that they can reasonably expend. We see a lot of applications request the maximum award amounts that don't show the capacity to administer the program they're proposing. So if funds are deobligated from an awarded contract, this is taken into consideration in future applications. Meet with your staff and any other program partners to discuss and determine how the program will be administered. The how must be decided in order to respond to the questions in the application. In case I haven't hammered this home enough, read the administrative plan to make sure you know the regs and you can comply with them. Some other important points to consider include, are there any other committed and available funding sources to use towards the project? Are there written commitments for these other funding sources? And is there a target area that would benefit most from this project, or would it be a community-wide program? And planning ahead. So kind of to summarize a little bit of what we've gone over, you want to review and verify CDOL registrations are set up and correct, first of all. Then you want to review all the informational documents, the note for the RFP, the CDOL application instructions, and note all of the requirements. Read the administrative plan. Then begin preparing the documents from our website, such as the budget, and then complete the CDOL attachments. And then we suggest last, after you've done all that prep work, enter the CDOL information and upload the documents. So some common deficiencies and lost points. The CDOL instructions walk through all the requirements, and it's obvious when an applicant hasn't read the instructions, the RFA, or an admin plan. So make sure you read those and follow them. If something is not attached to the CDOL application, uploaded as an attachment, we'll assume you don't have it. Or if something's not answered sufficiently, we'll assume you don't know the full answer. Scores only know what they read, so unclear answers indicate a lack of understanding of the program requirements, leading to lower scores. Responses to questions should be concise and answer the actual question. We see a lot of applications that include superfluous information, and this is often leads to confusion for the score, and is also an indication that the applicant really doesn't have a clear understanding of the home requirement and is just trying to fluff it. More words doesn't always mean more substance. So make sure also staff involved with the program administration contribute to the application responses and at least review the application prior to submission, especially if they have prior program experience. I covered in the previous slides that the home costs should be properly reflected in the application budget, but also the CDOL finance information should be consistent with that budget, which is uploaded as an attachment. Again, a lot of times we see things that are conflicting, or maybe it was updated in one area, not the other. and that leads to inconsistencies and eventually lower scores. We want to, again, make sure you have the organizational capacity to administer the program and spend the funds within 2.5 years. Prior home grant experiences that's not successful or challenges that were not overcome often hinder applications, and entering incorrect application information in CDOL or confusing it with another program. We see often folks lose points for. And again, we see that most with manufactured home replacement. So you're in the home application area, but you're entering answers as if it were the state program, and a lot of folks lose points. Okay. So we can provide TA and answer questions through the application deadline. After the round is closed, our staff will be scoring applications and we won't be able to address issues related to this any longer. So we want to make sure that you submit all questions to home program email box with the specific subject title 2023 home application. And all of the grant materials are located on our website. And with that, we think we have some time to field some questions for those of you who'd like to stay on. We did have over 100 people registered. I'm not sure how many are, we currently have like 80 on. So I ask that if your questions are detailed or specific to your agency, that you email those to us. But if you do have some general questions, we can take those now. And I'm gonna defer, actually, I'm gonna go to Marge, who is gonna help me with the, if there were any questions in Q&A.
Aren't any at this moment.
I do see some. So the 7th is a Thursday. Yes, that's correct. September 7th. Do you not see the ones in there, Marge?
No, I don't.
Okay.
My screen, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So yes, the 7th is a Thursday, I believe. Yep. If we currently, here's another question from Amanda. If we currently have a home contract open for manufactured home replacement that is coming to an end next summer, would we still be competitive for a new award through this funding round so we can sustain the program? I don't know if you'll be competitive. You'll be eligible. There's nothing prohibiting you from applying for that. Again, it's just showing that you can, that you're likely to expend the funds on time, and then also have the capacity to administer the new award. And then hopefully you have a good track record with the previous home award. Do we need to email you first? I'm sorry, this is from Shava. Do we need to email you first and ask for permission to apply if we are a nonprofit interested in applying for TBRA? No. Question from Brian, can TBRA cover rental arrears? And the answer to that is no. We wish it could. We get a lot of questions about that, but it cannot. And that's not because we say no, it's because it's a federal home requirement. The due date of applications, this is listed on our website, and it is Thursday, September 7th at 4 p.m. Hi, Ken. Ken Magara has a question For rehab, there's a maximum program award. Is there, and your question is cut off, Ken. It says, is there a, and that's all that it is. So you'll have to, you can, Ken, do you want to take yourself off mute and just verbally ask the question? I don't know if Ken's still on. We'll jump back to you, Ken, or you can re-enter it. Mary Jo asked, is rental assistance one-time or continuous? So we're highlighting the one-time only security deposit because that is how it was conveyed to us. The need was conveyed to us. But it could be continuous ongoing rental assistance. And it doesn't have to include security deposit. It could. But generally it could also be used for ongoing rental assistance.
May I have a question from Nick Martin?
I still
I'm not
have the other question. I still have questions.
Okay,
I'm gonna
we
keep
can go
going.
to my,
Does this funding cover new construction? So no, this is all for single family programs and we went over the activities. Can you also, can you have two home fund awards, state and local municipality? Don't know what you'd mean by that. Generally, yes, you can be awarded up to, we have a limit. You can have up to two awards through our program, based on capacity, as long as you demonstrate the capacity. We are working on a home buyer, basically gut rehab, and so that's more of a developer project type thing. So developers can come in, gut rehab homes and sell them to home eligible home buyers. That is not covered under this funding round. We're not ready to launch yet, but we do have that in the wings. You could, like I said, have state and local funding, but you should, if it's for the same activity, if you're applying for state funds, you should come in with the local home funds as leverage. If your local home funds cover something totally different, you might want to put that in the application as to why you're not coming in with local home funds. What is the best way to determine status related to historical awards through home? If you are a current home awardee or a recent awardee, you will know. If you're talking, we're not going to go and look back, 5, 6 years from now. It's more of a recent look back. And you would know what your standing is, or you could contact the home mailbox if you had a specific question. But if it's a long time ago, it's not something we're going to look far back on. It's within the most recent, 3 years. What is the project start date of the new projects? They're different for every awardee. It really depends on how long it takes to get through the environmental review process, which is the last piece that's needed after you're awarded. But again, we're looking, projecting that we'll be ready by next spring or sooner. The slides will be posted on the website next week. And if you were registered, I emailed them out to you earlier today. So the folks who are registered got an email from me with the slides. In addition to the security deposit assistance for TBRA, we find a need for broker's fees. Yes, and unfortunately, we looked into that because that did come up as a need with our discussions for legal assistance folks. And Marjorie, I believe we said the broker's fees were not able to be covered, right? Okay. is there a minimum, Ken, for application dollar amounts? So if that's what you mean, Ken, no, there's not. I mean, the minimum is $1,000 technically, or I can't even, I don't know what we set the minimum at, but you have to do at least a few units. But usually we don't have people ever hit the minimum. Can homeless families be prioritized? Elizabeth, I'm assuming you're talking about TBRA. Um, it depends on how it's constructed. It's a little bit more detailed than that. If it's regarding TBRA, we generally don't have preferences and priorities because they're not in our consolidated plan, which is a home requirement. So we prefer to see it open to the community. Um, but it is possible, but I think that's something that we would need to talk more about. For rental assistance, can mixed status families participate? Hi, Yoslin. Um, what do you mean by that? Um,
Mixed immigration status.
Mixed racial status?
Immigration.
I'm
But
sorry.
mixed immigration status, like for
Oh,
example,
oh,
DACA, or if there's someone that is already in the process of obtaining their green card, but they are in the process, so mixed status family.
so again, that one is a little bit complex. Overall, I want to say generally yes, but you'll want to look that up specifically in our administrative plan, which covers the legal status requirements. And I believe this has been a while that since I've answered this question, that nonprofits really don't even have to ask for that. But there are certain immigration statuses. They just have to be here legally. Um, so we can work with that, yes. Yes, thank you, Delia. Delia said thank you for the coming development subsidy. That is great news. Marge is working hard on it. We want it to be in compliance and good when we roll it out, and you are going to be one of my go-to people when we have it. So get ready. Steph, how are you? Stephanie Laws, is there a maximum amount of home federal funds that can be used for a home buyer project? For example, leveraging funds from another source. So if you're leveraging home all together with another home resource, all home funds together, yes, can't go over the home max limit. So you marry those two together. Our internal limit was what we had posted on the WebEx or the presentation. I think it's $80,000. Thank you, Sarah. Um, again, you can propose a waiver for that as long as it doesn't go over the home. There's a per unit maximum, which is, I can't imagine we would go over that. And then there's also the home purchase price limit. And it is whatever it is for, I assume you're looking in Queens, Steph. So whatever it is for Queens, that's the limit. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so yes, yes, kinda. So I'm thinking because, for instance, I'm looking at leveraging Home First, New York City's Home First program, which they go up to 100,000, and then I'm thinking if we were awarded, that would be 80. So that sounds like it's going over the federal limit.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head without looking up what the max home purchase price limit is for Queens, your area. So yes, if it's 180, then you're basically at the limit because you have to, any home funds, regardless of source, you put together to count towards that limit.
Okay. Thank you, Steph.
Shava or Chava, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Asked if environmental review is applicable for TBRA, and it is. So the environmental review is a little less detailed, but the environmental review applies to all of home activities across the board. Oh, good, Caitlin. I'm glad you're new and welcome, and I hope that you find this informative and apply. Sorry, hang on. Every time a question pops up, it moves my place. Yeah, so TBRA, good. Lots of TBRA questions. Please expand upon TBRA. Is the landlord requesting these repairs or is the tenant? So there's no repairs for TBRA. So again, look in the RFA and in the slides here and in the admin plan, TBRA covers it's tenant-based rental assistance. So it covers rent for a tenant, potentially. It could cover security deposit as well. And in conjunction with either of those, you could also include utility deposit assistance. Utility deposit can't be standalone. But you could just do plain rental assistance by itself. You could do plain security deposit. So there are a couple configurations you could do. So there are no repairs per se that TBRA covers. The units that are rented have to meet standards. And I believe the standards are changing, so I don't want to say HQS, but they have to meet property standards and, be a suitable place to live. The landlord signs an agreement and the tenant also signs an agreement for assistance. If it's something you'd like to talk further about, please email the home program email box and we can set up a time to talk one-on-one. And Dan, yeah, so he asked about are asylum seekers eligible? And again, I'm going to say go to the admin plan because it really has been a while since I've dealt with the details of that and I don't want to misspeak. But if the admin plan doesn't cover what you're asking, please email me or the home program email box. So there are certain types of residency that are technically allowed. But I do want to say that our legal office and our fair and equitable housing office determine that if you're a not-for-profit, I believe it says this in the admin plan. I said I wasn't going to say it, but here I am. You don't always have to ask for legal residency status. You just have to be here be in the country legally, but you don't have to have legal citizenship. Mary Jo, what income chart is used for TBRA 60% AMI? So there should be links in our RFA. If you go into the RFA, it says everyone has to comply with the home income limits, and there's a link to the home income limits. And if you can't find it, email us directly and we'll send that out to you. Marge, did you have any questions come to you?
Just had one. I'm not sure why, but I think they were just directing them questions directly to you. But I had one from Megan Martin. Is there a match requirement? Good
question. So yes, historically home does have, I should say no, we don't have a match requirement. Yes, you're right in asking. Historically home does have a match requirement, but we are waiving it for this particular funding round. We reserve the right to invoke it later on down the road, but no, at this time it's covered by other state funding sources. Thanks, Florence. Thanks. So yeah, if folks don't have any other questions, I think we're all set. So good luck, everyone. Hope to see some applications started. And again, if you have some questions or want to talk about the construct of your proposed application, just email the home program mailbox and we'll get in touch with you. It was great seeing everyone, old, I shouldn't say old, previous applicants and new. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Take care.